Ancient pantheon, gods above us, answer us when we call. Send relief, have mercy upon us, hear this our cry for all. How much more must we endure, silence ringing in the air? Surely you see as your people fall, hear this our cry for all.
This is insane. We've been travelling for days. How do we even know we're going in the right direction?
How many times have you journeyed into the Wildland, Hal?
I did my time on the line, same as everyone, Helga.
But you never went in.
I wasn't a ranger. No need to come into this hellscape. Just kill what comes out and burn it back.
Right. And how many contacts would you have when you were on the line?
How am I supposed to remember that?
Humor me. Just an estimate.
Sometimes a couple per day.
Right. And now we are 3 days' travel beyond the line. How many times have we been attacked?
We haven't.
That strikes me as a good sign that we are on the right track. The things in here, they can open and close the ways. The fact that we haven't been torn to shreds or lost our minds tells me that we're probably still in the ways. So long as we keep to the path, we should be okay.
The things in here. Lawrence said they were people, like us.
There are no people living in here, Tal. People like us can't survive in here. Whatever your son saw was likely an illusion, a dream, or a hallucination.
Why do the ways exist at all? The creatures in here don't need to use them, do they?
Who knows? There could be 1,000 reasons for them. Maybe they aren't supposed to be used for travel at all. The point is, other than rumors and idle talk, there's never been any sign of people living in here. And all my experience tells me that anything that tries would die.
Well, with that in mind, I recommend we head home. I can track Saryn. Not as well as a ranger like you, but I can track. I haven't seen a single trace of anyone moving through here, including the children. We haven't slept in days. We've been pushing and pushing ourselves, and we haven't found anything. We should head back.
Easy for you to say, Spawn. Your child has returned to you. 5 children are still missing. Yav, 10, Shadi, Leia, Shayna. We are following your son's directions. What will you tell the other families, especially after what your boy brought back with him?
Careful with that spawn talk, witch. Snakes in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Calm it down, you two. We're all tired. Tal, honestly, I would be more worried about the way back. Whilst we are following them, the ways can be trusted, and there's no guarantee that the path back is still open.
Thanks, Finn. I'm filled with confidence.
There is a reason the Vanguard and Town Amgar wouldn't authorize a search party, and I expect it's the same reason your husband didn't come with you.
We all knew the risks of coming out here.
Fine. We need to rest.
Sure. Let's keep going until the path widens out a little. I don't want us setting up camp somewhere we can wander off the path in the dark.
Fine. Fine, lead on. She'd been thinking about it for days, and she didn't know how to tell Robin. They were lost. Not the kind of lost that they would get playing hide-and-seek together in the copse inside the battlements of Kier, when they would get so excited and wrapped up in the game that they would forget to mark the trees or count the steps, as Mother had taught her to do. No, when they were lost in the thicket, they were still in the fortification. They knew where they were. They were still home. And except for the scary snake witch who would sometimes appear and shout at them, and the occasional nervous badger protecting its set from optimistic burrowing children, there was not much to fear from the Wupo cops. They were not wild like the jungle outside. They did not carry the blight, thanks to the witch. Here was different. They would not be able to call for rescue here. The people of Kier would not hear their cries. Even the vanguard would not venture this far, save perhaps the rangers. They were not home. Here was a special kind of nowhere, which led to nowhere else. She and Robin had broken free of the silent and scary grown-ups who had ambushed them in the night and snatched them from the clearing. She was not sure how she had gotten to the clearing, or why the other children were with her. All she could remember was the sweet and melodic tune which had been swimming around in her head, causing her to feel soft and light, euphoric. A tune which she couldn't shake from her mind, and which Robin too would whistle softly as they drifted off to sleep. She had no idea how many of those scary willow bark portals the nasty adults had dragged them through before they made their move. But she hadn't been able to locate a single one of them since they escaped. There had been no sign of the portals, but there had been neither hide nor hair of the other children, or the nasty grown-ups either. Yav had tried to leave tracks as best as she could for someone to follow, but every time she made a mark, it simply disappeared. And every time she dropped something to trace a path, it would find its way back to her by the next morning. She often wondered if she was dreaming the whole thing. The past 2 sleeps she had fully expected to wake up back with the other children, marching and marching, silently towards whatever destination the nasty grown-ups intended. She would wake up every time in a panic and search frantically for Robin in the dark. Her dreams reminded her of those she had suffered during the sickness which had swept through Kier years ago. The sickness which had taken her mother. The lines between sleep and waking blurred by a nauseous confusion and disorientation, forcing wakefulness many times before it could be trusted. These twilight moments were the worst for Yav. As she searched for Robin, she would find herself alone, or worse, in the company of creatures dark and grotesque, which would watch her hungrily from the shadows. Oftentimes she would see her late mother, other time the husks of countless bodies littered across the duff. Bodies with vast cavities rend into them, piles of teeth beside them, and at their feet, great mortar filled with half-pulped hearts and other organs. Sometimes she would dream that Robin was eating greedily from these. Sometimes her mother. And sometimes he would be there, watching, smiling, caked head to toe in dark earth, his violet eyes piercing into her soul. But she would always wake again, to the familiar sound of Robin sleeping at her side, his small body pushed tightly against hers for warmth and comfort. She could shake off these night terrors, but she could not shake off those violent eyes. She felt them, even when she was certain she was awake. She'd been thinking about it for days. They were never going to escape from here. Who would come after them now that Mother was gone? Neither of their fathers seemed to care where they were or what they were doing. It was possible the horrible pair were too drunk or too busy to have noticed they were even gone. Not that they would care. She was just an ungrateful mouth to feed, and Robin's father saw him much the same way. She could not remember ever visiting Robin's home, but somehow she knew it was even worse than her own. She was glad to have someone she could talk to about it, someone who would understand, who could relate, someone who wouldn't refuse to talk to her or tell her to keep it to herself, like the others would. Robin had it harder than Yav in many ways. He was treated as if he barely existed at all. Robin was Yav's closest and dearest friend. They were everything to one another. She loved him more than anyone, maybe even as much as she had loved her mother. And now, they were trapped, and she couldn't save him from this endless, haunting wildland.
Are you hungry, Yav?
Asked the boy, the last of the berries held outstretched toward her, cupped in his small hands.
You look angry. I feel like that when I'm hungry.
He finished, nudging her elbow gently with the outstretched hand. She knew she would have to tell him eventually. She didn't like keeping secrets from her best friend.
Thanks, Robin. Where did you find these?
She asked him idly, as she picked two of the dark red fruits and placed them in her mouth, not chewing them, but rolling them around in her mouth to savour them.
When I come home, I look for them. The jungle tells me I know where to find them.
Robin responded matter-of-factly, correcting himself, stuffing the remaining handful of berries into his mouth and chomping gleefully, a small sliver of red liquid squirting from his lips. Yav rounded on her friend and pulled a reproachful face, like the one she remembered Mother making when she was disobedient or mischievous.
Don't wander off on your own,
she said sternly, sounding even more like her mother as she spoke.
Use the buddy system, remember. We need to stay together.
Robin looked scolded and hurt by Yav's tone, and responded apologetically.
Sorry.
He looked at the ground and kicked idly at the pile of leaves at his feet, which they had collected the night before to serve as mattress.
I shall eat my buddy, I know, but you are sad and hungry.
Yav softened her tone, recognizing her friend's hurt feelings.
I'm sorry. We can collect them all next time, okay?
Robin smiled and nodded emphatically.
There's no need to worry. We're very good at hide and seek. The bad people won't be able to find us. We are the very best.
Yav sometimes forgot how much younger Robin was. Mostly because Robin didn't know how old Robin was either. It was strange. Yav could tell that he was a good 3 or 4 years younger than her, but she couldn't remember a time in her life when he hadn't been there. He looked up to her more than just in terms of stature. He seemed to think she was invincible, infallible, and when they were together, that is exactly how she felt. They didn't need anyone else. Not that anyone wanted them. But she couldn't keep pretending that she wasn't tired, that she wasn't hungry or scared. Yav had had plenty of practice of this since her mother passed into the other world. But for the first time in a long time, She needed someone to be strong for her. Yav began to weep. Softly at first, willing herself to hold back her tears, swallowing hard against the impulse and hiccuping. But the moment Robin put his little arms around her waist, she could no longer hold back the flood. She threw her arms around Robin, pulling his head in close to her body, and began sobbing uncontrollably. Robin's body too began to convulse as he joined in sympathy. They cried and cried together, falling back onto the earth on their soft leaf bedding. The tears felt like they went on forever, each of them stopping only momentarily until the other started up again. They lay there weeping and holding each other for comfort, until they drifted off into exhausted slumber once more. When she awoke, Yav was alone. She once again found herself in a twilight stupor, once again unsure of where she was. She searched frantically for Robin, but he was nowhere to be found. Yav's sense of panic and alarm began to surge as she noticed that Robin's bed had been scattered. Footsteps and voices in the distance drew her attention, and she immediately began to fear the worst. They'd been found. Those awful, nasty people had got to him, and she was next. They'd be punished, like the others who tried to run, like Noi, Rashmi and Lauren. She whimpered at the thought, but caught herself before it became too loud. They didn't have her yet, and maybe she could help Robin escape again. For some reason, as she tried to push away the fear and imagine her heroic rescue, she struggled to recall Robin's face and his voice. She knew she must be panicked. It became difficult to remember things when you were frightened. Your memory got all muddled. That's what the adults had told her anyway, when they didn't want to hear her stories. The voices were getting closer now. There were many of them, and they didn't sound like the bad people. Some of them were even familiar. Yes, she definitely heard one of those voices before. It was the witch. The snake witch from the Wupo copse inside the fortifications. Yav crawled slowly on her belly, careful not to disturb too many leaves or break any branches as she moved herself up, over the lip of the small ditch they had camped in, peering over the bough of the fallen tree which screened their hiding place. She was right. It was the witch. She wasn't alone. There were others with her. She didn't recognize the Saurian or the wren at the front, but she'd recognize Lauren's dad anywhere. He stood out with his horns and his tail. They must have been looking for the children. They were saved. Just as Yav was about to begin scrambling out from behind the tree and running over to the group, she felt a hand at her leg. Yav started and turned quickly, looking down again to the frightened face of Robin. His skin was white with terror and his eyes wide. He whispered.
Don't tell them we're here.
Yav's body relaxed at seeing her friend's return, and she shuffled herself down toward him, embracing him once tightly before stroking his sweaty head in comfort.
They're from home,
said Yav, a comforting and confident smile plastered across her face.
They can take us back.
Robin cut her off with a tone and expression she had not seen on him before.
I don't want to go back.
He said with a forceful whisper.
We can stay here. We don't need to go back.
He continued, furrowing his eyebrow and crossing his arms across his chest.
It's not safe here, Robbie. The bad people can find us. This is Wildland. We need shelter from the...
Yav hesitated,
The what?
Robin asked forcefully. But Yav could not recall that from which she had been taught to seek shelter.
The bad people found us at home. The jungle gives us food. We'll get more than we got at home.
Robin's voice became more insistent as he spoke, and he gestured down to his muddy and stained garb, which he had folded up to serve as a container for yet more of the dark red berries they had eaten earlier. His shirt was nearly overflowing with them, and Yav struggled to comprehend how she had not seen him carrying them earlier, or how she had avoided crushing them when she had embraced him.
Robbie, I don't want to sleep on the floor.
Yav complained, turning her head and craning her neck to see if the witches' party were coming any closer. It sounded as if they had stopped. Their voices were raised and there appeared to be a discussion going on.
I found a place. It has food and beds. The wilds won't hurt us. They are our friend. They want to give the whole world a big look. They need our help. All we need to do is play here.
Calm it down. We're all tired. Now, honestly, I would be more worried about the way back. Whilst we are following them, the way can be trusted. There's no guarantee that the path back is still open.
Robin's voice remained as a whisper, but his eyes were wide with expectation and excitement. The sweet, soft melody whistled again in Yav's mind as Robin continued.
I don't want to go back. I only want to play with you in the wilds. We can play together. Here no one will find us.
He began pulling at the shoulder of her clothes as he spoke.
I want the adults to go away. I want them to go away forever. The wilds want that too. They can make them all go away forever.
Yav brushed away Robin's hand and shuffled back up the small lip to the fallen tree. Robin continued to tug frustratedly at her trouser legs from below and continued his whispered protestations. As he did so, the sweet music continued to fill her mind, drowning her thoughts in bliss. But as Yav watched the adults, silently observing them making their way away from their hide and further down the path, she saw their shadows flickering and the air around them darken. A pressure began to grow in Yav's mind, and her own thoughts whispered to her. Robbie was right. Why should they go with the witch and the spawnborn? No one had beaten them here. No one had hurt them here. Here it was only Robbie and Yav and games of hide and seek for as long as they wanted. The pressure spread and the shadows around the party grew deeper and moved with yet greater violence. Maybe they were helping the bad people. Maybe they were going to hurt them, just like they'd hurt the others who had run. Yav shuffled her way back down the rise towards Robin, who maintained a look halted between fear and stubborn indignation.
Okay, Robbie. Where is this place then?
Yav asked with contrite concession in her tone. Robin responded right away.
It's not far.
You will love it.